Hello and welcome to According to John. Today I have a special guest. His name is Craig Alsup with Manna. Brother, how are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Well, welcome to
Excited
According
to
to
be
John, man.
Yeah, excited to be here.
And I didn't have to pay him to be on the show.
Right? I didn't know that was an option. Wait a minute.
It was not. It was not an option, man. Oh, that is so funny. So we had Craig in this morning, and he preached for us and presented Manna Worldwide, which Manna Worldwide is how many countries are you in now?
Yeah, so almost 50 countries now.
That's crazy.
It's grown.
Right? Yeah, because I remember years ago when it about started out. And how long have you been with Manna now?
Yeah, so the organization started out many years ago. I've been with Manna since the end of 2015, though. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so
a little while.
Wife, children?
Yeah, so married. My wife, Jennifer, is at home. Shout out to Jennifer.
Yeah.
And then two biological kids, Sarah and Jude, who are 12 and 10.
Amen.
Yeah.
Now Sarah is into ballet and Jude is soccer star.
Right. Sarah's into all things ballet. She also does soccer, but ballet's her heart.
But like she's good.
She is. Yeah, she's been like the lead in the ballet and all that stuff that I don't understand, but I go.
That's dad. All that stuff.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. Yeah, so she's in all soccer, or I mean all ballet, everything
right.
Ballet.
Everything's dance. Everything's ballet. Practice multiple times a week. All kinds of stuff going on.
Right, but you said too that like she's been the lead, and
she has. She was the lead last year when she was 11. She was Alice in Alice in Wonderland. So big role. Right. She was in every dance basically for the whole production.
Loving life.
Yeah, doing good.
So what we're going to talk about today is obviously we're going to learn who Craig is and learn a little more about him, his ministry. We're going to learn about Manna Worldwide, the impact that they're making on lives, what they do exactly, and just kind of have fun today, right? Because I have a list of questions, man, that I want some answers to.
All right, let's go.
Right. All right. So what? All right. When was Manna founded?
So yeah, Manna has been around since 2001. Was founded by a missionary who was in the Philippines. Basically looked outside the doors of his church and realized there were a whole lot of kids, a whole lot of families in that community that didn't have their basic needs met, their physical needs met, and started to try to meet those. And then it's just grown to almost 50 countries now in the last 23, 24 years.
That is so crazy, man, right? And Bruce is the one who founded it.
The brainchild of Bruce O'Neill.
Which is scary child.
Yeah, it's a little frightening at times to think of what it started from and what we are now and what God's done.
So how many people are with Manna right now?
So now we're right close to 100 staff. We've got staff here in the United States as well as the Philippines, a couple other places around the world. But it's growing fast though. So we're taking on a bunch of new staff every year at this point.
So out of the 50 countries, how many orphanages do you have? Now, because I know you have, so I know you have orphanages and you have feeding centers and you have some school areas or schools. Just kind of give us that picture of what the whole thing kind of looks like.
Right. Yeah. So we have orphanages, we have schools, we have nutrition centers, we have some medical clinics in different parts of the world. We've dug water wells in multiple places. Kind of our bread and butter, our beginning is from nutrition centers where we're helping kids to get the food that they need, the educational support that they need so that they can continue to be maintained within their family household. Where a lot of the places that we work, the family has to make a decision of, do we send them to school or do they go work, some menial job to be able to help support the family? Yeah,
because especially in Nepal, you got the annual salary there on average is like $1,200 a year.
Right. Right. And things are cheaper, but not that much cheaper.
Yeah, let me repeat that. $1,200 a year.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's it means that most of the country is in desperate poverty. It's one of the most impoverished countries in the world. But God's still showing up, still working miracles there. So
yeah, God's on the throne. Amen.
That's right.
He is. God does amazing things when we are. It's kind of crazy, right? Because we go there because we love Jesus and we love people,
right?
And I say we because we help send you there,
right?
And then you guys go, and for anybody, missionaries or church planners, Christians, when they go out, and when we go with the expectation God's going to do something big.
Exactly.
Because if we don't believe that, why bother?
Right.
You know. So what was the big thing you believe God in, and not just with Manna, because obviously you guys are doing great things, but like for you as a Christian and individual, what was the one thing in God, like that big thing where you was like, okay, God, show me? Did you have anything, or did you like to have that moment?
Yeah. In 2008, I went to Nepal for the first time. We fell in love with a couple kids in an orphanage, started to sponsor them.
Now you guys had just been recently married, you and your wife.
Right. We got married in 2005.
Right.
Then we started traveling a little bit. We worked for a couple years, saved all our money, and then started traveling.
Yeah. So look, for newlyweds, let me help you out. So he and his wife had an agreement that they would save all their money, not buy each other gifts and all that other stuff, so that they could make this trip.
Yeah, right. I basically tell people it was like spaghetti with no meat, ramen noodles. It was board games
water.
at home. It was no going out for about 2.5 years. And we saved our money, and then we went and started backpacking.
Right.
And we met, during that trip, we met 2 little kids in an orphanage that changed our lives forever.
Right.
And so for us, it was a thing that we wanted to see through. We saw these kids, we saw their need. We could have just said, hey, let us send some money. But from the beginning, we told those kids, hey, we want to be part of your lives.
Right.
We want to connect. And I don't know why, but God led us there and led us to them. And God then used that to change our hearts and direct our path more towards what he had for us and what we could do about people in need around the world.
Yeah. So now you guys, here we are. That was in that was
08.
08. Yeah. Because 05 you met. So in 08, and now here we are, 2024.
Yeah. So a few years ago.
Yeah, dude, you only look about 25.
Hey,
man,
so. My wife is aging really well. I don't know what's happening to me. I don't know.
Listen, man, anybody that loses their hair, I'm in with. I'm like,
hey,
go bald, right?
We're part of the same club.
Exactly. So, so what exactly? I know we talked a little bit about Manna, what it does. You've been with that. Now, how long have you been with Manna?
Since right at the end of 2015.
That's what you said at 2015. And then
about 9 years.
So when you started with Manna versus where you are now, man, tell me the change in your heart. Has there been a, like, for you, just this massive tug that now is inescapable?
Yeah. We began to feel since 2008, really, it's been like God drawing us closer and closer to a mission, to a purpose that was so much bigger than us. But in 2015, God really, really just laid it in front of us. And my wife always says that by the time we said yes to God about joining Manna, it was so obvious to us that the Holy Spirit was tugging us that direction that it would have been so dangerous, we felt like, to say no at that point. Right. It would have been like a slap in the face.
Right, because God made it so clear.
It was so clear. And so when we came on with Manna, we were all in from the get-go. But we we didn't know what that looked like. We had never done ministry really. I mean, been in full-time ministry before. And, it was funny because we had to sell our house and sell a car and start traveling and raising our personal support. And that was daunting, but it was sort of what kept our minds busy for a couple years there. Right. But then once that ended, kind of came to as much of a stop as it ever does. We started being able to lead mission teams, and we started to see what God could do in the hearts of people and in the lives of people when they saw the need face to face.
Right.
And so God has been just blessing our socks off with getting to see people's lives change here in the States because they go with us to these places, and then overseas as well in the places that we go to for the last 7 years at least.
So let me ask you this, man, because I don't know that everybody out there understands the process of raising your own support.
Yeah, that's fun.
Right. I mean, because it takes money to make money, and then it doesn't end, and especially now that you guys, of course, with the cost of living and the economy just tanking, as far as the cost of everything is just skyrocketing.
Yeah.
Have you guys been able to offset your support? Have you? Because I know personally for us as a church. Who support you and support Manna, we've had to back up and look and go, okay, do we make the adjustment for the finances? Because, let's face it, $100 doesn't go where it used to go.
Right. Yeah. The price of things going up, obviously that happens all over the world. Our primary thing that we want to focus on is the price of things going up in our projects and them needing more money. Right. So that's what we want to focus on. But honestly, we do have to look at ours as well. When we came on with Manna, they basically, my superiors at Manna basically said, okay, so here's what you do. You quit your real job. You take this step of faith, right. You pack your family up in your little Honda Accord, and you start driving around and speaking to churches and speaking with business people, and you start asking them, hey, will you support us? Will you support us? And we thought, okay, sounds a little crazy, but we're game.
Yeah, why not?
Our families thought we were really nuts.
So now to bring it back to your family, right? How many of your family are saved? Or were saved then versus now.
Yeah, so both sides of our family, thankfully, we both grew up in believing homes. Okay. And so with saved family members, that helped us a lot. We at least had a background, and we at least had sort of a foundational, people behind us, right?
But here's what's interesting. Even though you're saved, right, and you come from a saved. So, for example, I didn't come from a family of Christians. Like I did not grow up in a Christian home. As a matter of fact, I was far opposite of a Christian home, right? So then I get saved, and obviously my family was like, okay, what's going on here? This is because John's actually being lawful. It's like
that's a difference.
When have we ever seen him lawful, right? And then they're going, wait a minute, okay, it's just he'll get over it. It's a fad or whatever. And then as the years went on, right, I'm living for Jesus, loving Jesus. I mean, I'm rocking it out. And then I surrendered to the ministry. Now I sell my business, I sell everything, and we moved to Springfield, Missouri. We were living in North Carolina at the time. I moved to Springfield, Missouri to go to Bible college. Let me say this, I was a 10th grade dropout. So now I went in my 30s. I was let's see, I would have been 32 because I got saved at 27. I was 26. Got saved in October and of 94, turned 27 in November.
Wow.
Go get my GED. I think I'm 32 years old. I go get my GED. And then I'm sitting I sell my business, sell everything. I'm sitting in a classroom now at 35 years old. I'm sitting
with a bunch of 18-year-olds.
Right. So when I told my friends, who were all Christian at this point, the majority of them, and the church family, that I'm going to Bible college, they're like, "You're crazy. Do you realize you have, you're 35 now. You have a family. You got to think about retirement. You got to. It's like, what are you thinking? You don't." And I'm like, "No, God called me. I got to go." So when I said all that to say this, that even though your family is saved, but now you're telling them, like, we're selling everything, we're quitting our jobs, and we're going out. Was your family going? Even though they're saved, they can still go, "You're nuts."
Yeah. Yeah, truly stepping out in faith to do ministry full time was not something that we had a picture of, my wife or me. It was definitely us leaning on the other folks at Manna and going, okay, what advice do you have? How do we start? What do we do?
Yeah, but Bruce,
really, our families,
Bruce is amazing.
Right, Bruce knows the ropes, right? Yeah. He's been doing this a long time. And
Bruce, we're not saying you're old, but buddy, you do have a few years on you.
But our families were as understanding as they could be. I think the first question my parents asked me when I said, "Okay, I'm going on with Manna Worldwide. I'm going to be a missionary and all this stuff." My mom, I think, said, "So, does it pay good?" And I said, "Well,
are you six figures?
It depends what you consider good. It pays according to how much I raise." And she said, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Well, I have to go and ask people to support us, and most of them will be $50 or $100 a month or whatever." And she said, "How do you live on that?" And I said, "Well, you get a whole bunch of those.
That takes a lot of those
you
churches.
Add those up, and then I tell people, most people have a job. That if their employer decided to close the doors tomorrow, they lost their one stream of income that made up 100% of their income. If any of my employers, any of our supporters decide to shut up, close shop and stop supporting us tomorrow,
you still have.
I've got 60 others.
Right.
And so once you start to look at it, and you go, you know what? It's all up to God to provide.
Right.
It's up to me to go find the people that God has already spoken into their world and provided for them so that they can support us.
Right.
But that's where my responsibility stops and his begins to move in their hearts and get them to support us.
And of course, now you've been doing it so long that mom's okay.
Yeah, she's singing that we've been able to feed the kids, and
we can buy new shoes.
That was the concern, is that my kids would be shoeless and not get to eat anything but ramen noodles.
Or they would have to spend their retirement on your
They're
like,
so far so good.
That is so funny. All right, so who do you guys partner with overseas? Because you're in 50 different countries, so what does it look like to partner with, and who are they?
Yeah, I usually say my job is the easy job. I get to spend time in the States, traveling around to churches, raising funds, building partnerships here with churches and businesses and stuff. But we have partners around the world who I consider their job the hard job. Now, with the difficulty comes a whole lot of blessing, because they get to see these stories play out in people's lives of God just doing the incredible things. But they are, they're hands-on. And so we started out partnering with missionaries from the United States that were in different places. But the thing is, those missionaries get there and they build relationships with national pastors, with local people who have the same heart, the same focus, and the same drive, and who I tend to consider some of the heroes of the faith. for me. And so we partner now with a lot of those national pastors, a lot of those believers that are locals, as well as still some missionaries from the United States, as well as missionaries from the Philippines and South Korea. We've got some partners.
So, and you know, when you talk about challenging for them, because what many of you may not know, for example, like in Nepal, if a family member gets saved, they run the risk of being thrown out of the house, cast out of their family for leaving the Hindu belief. Usually it's the Hindu belief, right?
Exactly.
And so now they're outcasted. They may literally be homeless, hungry, homeless. It just like it can go downhill pretty quick for them.
Right.
And so now there's this whole process that happens, man, that you guys come in, not only do they get saved, but you guys got to be smart about this.
Sure. Yeah, we, it's fairly often that I have a conversation with a young person that says, I believe in Jesus, but I can't tell my family.
Right.
And walking them through that and going, okay, yeah, maybe that's going to be hard to do right now, but we're going to pray for them. We're going to look for inroads to start to share with your parents. And then we're going to see you, hopefully, lead your family to Christ. And it's going to be a beautiful story, but they can't see that sometimes in the beginning when it's scary and dangerous.
Right, it takes a while.
It's hard.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because one of the things that I wanted Craig to do, and I asked him to do it during the service at church, but I think for most people, especially Americans, they're totally clueless on the Hindu belief.
Right.
And of course, because if you look at the Hindu belief, and I know like for many Americans, when we look at it, we go, just a peaceful movement. They go in their little closet and pray to whatever, and they have these little idols sitting in there, and they might have candles burning and pictures up on the walls and incense burning and so on and so forth. And we're like, okay, it's a peaceful group. It's no big deal. But it is way deeper than that. And so what I want Craig to do is just take a moment and explain to us the Hindu belief.
Yeah, I'll try to do a good job of it. I'm sure there are probably people that will watch this that probably know Hinduism way better than I ever will because they've experienced it hands-on and within their families. But yeah, so Hinduism is a multi-god system. There are
now, when you say multi, we're talking
literally hundreds of millions of gods and goddesses that are named. They have some primary ones, but they tend to worship various things, various different beings. Right. There are temples that are dedicated to rats and cows and snakes and all these different things. The Hindu religion believes in reincarnation, so they believe in that your only hope is to do enough good to appease enough gods that you're reincarnated into something better than you were before, and eventually you reach sort of karma, like you reach, not karma, but you reach sort of an end result of heaven, a place of good for you. They believe in a lot of different gods and goddesses that tend to be warring against one another, that tend to be these sensual, sexual, tied up creatures.
Isn't that crazy?
They do a lot of different ritualistic, sacrificial things, really with an effort to just sort of appease the gods, try to get on their good side so that hopefully they will provide something good for me. Right. But there's a sense of hopelessness in that because they don't really know. They don't know that there is salvation at some point in this process. They just know that hopefully if I do enough ritualistic stuff, maybe the gods will pay attention and maybe they won't.
Right. Well, one of the gods that you were sharing with is the god that where he's standing on people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, which one is that?
Yeah. So Ganesh.
Ganesh. Yes.
in one of the Hindu temples there in Kathmandu, Nepal area, years ago, I saw carvings and a painting on the side of this temple, and was looking closer at it, and it's the god Ganesh with all of his different arms, and in one arm he's holding a sword, and in another hand he's got a head decapitated from a human with blood dripping down, and he's standing on the bodies of a bunch of humans. And you kind of look at that god and you go, is that who I want to worship? But it's very fear-based that they continue to do these rituals and stuff, because it's just been ingrained in them that they have to do all this or else. But
well, that's the thing. When you think about it, people are fear-driven.
Sure.
I mean, fear is probably one of the greatest motivators of all time, to be quite honest.
Exactly.
Right? And then I think second is money.
Yeah.
Because
the fear of having no money.
The fear of having, right. But when you look at it, dude, and then all of a sudden they have been brought up fearing these gods.
Sure.
And they're always sacrificing to these gods because they're afraid of what these gods are going to do.
Yeah. So
now when you introduce Jesus to them,
yeah,
they're like, what?
Like, there's a God who loves you.
Yeah.
That's a foreign concept to them.
Right. And now, and they can't, it's hard to believe that, because they've been raised their whole life believing that there's a God that hates them. And so now here comes Craig or other Christians to go, no, there's a God who loves you. Let me help you with this. And they legit struggle with that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a hard hill to climb. For them to climb out of not just the religious beliefs and the entanglement that causes in their lives, but the fact that in most places that are very Hindu or very Muslim or very Buddhist even, their culture is so intertwined with their religion that from the time they wake up to the time they go to sleep, they're doing something, seeing something, experiencing something that is rooted in that religion.
Right.
The Kathmandu Valley has the highest conglomerate, the highest number of various temples and temple complexes anywhere in the world in a size space that's that big. And so literally everywhere they look, there's a sacrifice being made, there's a ritual over here, there's these things that you have to turn, or this wishing well that you have to throw coins in, or this temple that you have to pray as you drive past.
Yeah, constant work. Yes, constant work.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, and I probably interrupted you before you finished. Forgive me for that. On the Ganesh, right? That's the
Ganesh.
Ganesh. I'm sorry. Thank you. Standing there with a sword in one hand.
Yeah. And holding this decapitated, blood dripping, head, standing on top of a bunch of bodies.
That's the crazy part.
And you go, he's standing on top of people, and then you look at things like the caste system in Nepal, in India, and these regions of the world, and you go, of course there's a caste system. Of course there are people who think that they are better than everybody else, that they're closer to the gods, and they try to step on everybody else because look at their God standing on everybody else, standing on the backs of people to get ahead, to be on top of the pile. And that's exactly what happens in the caste system. You have the people that are the Brahmins, that high caste people who basically have everything, get everything given to them, and who stand on the backs of everybody else to say, you are nothing, you are worthless, you belong at the bottom of the heap. And
so they'll cut throat to get to the top.
Yeah. So you see some really interesting stuff where it plays right off of what they believe in their faith as well.
Yeah, that's just, of course, in America, we don't think of that. In America, we don't usually see that because, we're willing to step on people. Yeah. Let's be honest. Americans are willing to step on people. But typically we're more gracious too.
Yeah.
Because the reality is there's no value of life in that.
Right.
I mean, legit, there's no value of life.
Right.
But when you all you think of is you, and how do I dominate someone else so that I can get on top? That's
right.
And then it's a downhill spiral from there.
Right.
That is so crazy.
Yeah.
Man. So how do they believe they get to heaven, or there is no heaven? It's just reincarnation.
Yeah.
Because
So there's heaven.
There's reincarnation in the Bible.
Right.
You know, when the apostles asked Jesus, who sinned first, this man that he was born blind or his parents, right?
Wow.
Well, how could you sin before birth? And that's why they asked this man who was born blind, who sinned first, him or his parents?
Yeah.
So that's a, right. You never thought of that?
Yeah.
But there's like a taste of reincarnation there.
Yeah. That concept filters into the human condition.
Yeah.
I think we want a do-over sometimes, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
I want a lot of do-over.
like sometimes we want a do-over. We want to
do.
think, oh, maybe I'll have another shot at this thing. But you know, I don't
Well,
think.
in a life of poor decisions and regret,
Sure.
right? I mean, let's face it, dude. We all have it. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'll speak for me.
Yeah.
Before
We all have
Jesus, oh my goodness, dude. There's so much I wish I would never. Like, I have a ton of regret before Jesus.
Right.
You know, and then since Jesus, I've been stupid a lot.
Still mess up.
Still
Right?
mess up.
It's a good thing he covers us once and for all.
It really is, right? So you were saying there's heaven. They believe that there's a heaven.
Right. So they believe that there's a heaven. They believe that you could be reincarnated so many times, and you basically get all those shots at it.
Wow.
And
So
if you
do we
don't,
know how
if you
many
don't get it right
times?
by the end, I think it's like 1,000 something times. It's like,
Wow, they're
there's
gracious.
a specific number. So, you know, you can live
They're incredibly gracious.
you can live a whole lot of life
Holy smokes.
in that many times. So, yeah. But you never know what you're going to be reincarnated as, how it's going to go. Is it better or worse for you in the next?
Yeah,
Who knows?
you
Who
can
knows?
come back as
You don't know if you did well enough to get to the next best thing,
Oh wow.
because you don't.
Yeah,
don't
so
have
you
any-
might have to keep starting over.
There's no guarantee.
So you might be coming
Right.
back as a possum every time.
Yeah,
Everybody
something.
trying to run you over.
Something, a slug or something. I don't know.
Yeah, because who knows? That but when you think about that, right? So and I'm not knocking anyone's religion. I'm not knocking anything, but here's my point in this. When you talk to people and you ask them how to get to heaven, and they're usually like, oh yeah, just be good.
Right.
Of course, then the next question is, how good's good enough?
Right.
When do you know when you cross the finish line? And then that begs the next question: by whose standard?
Right.
Right? Because you got 1,000 people. You could quite possibly have 1,000 different standards of what good is.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so, you know, when we're like, yeah, depending on how well you did, depends on how you come back, and then how many times before you get, like, everybody is so creative on heaven, you know, because I think there's right at 4,500 different religions in the world.
Mm.
And I tell people all the time, there's two religions in the world. There's humanism and there's Christianity.
Yeah.
God's way or man's way.
Yeah.
There's nothing else.
Right.
And yet man is so intent on not surrendering to God and doing things his way that we just become these creative beings.
Yeah. Well, we want to usurp God's authority and become the creator when he is the creator.
Yeah.
You know, and if we can create our own way of sort of getting ourselves to feel okay about getting there one day,
Right.
you know, getting to heaven or nirvana or whatever we want to call it, then
As long
we
as
get
it's
to
our
be the
standard.
creator.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're meant to be.
Yeah. And now the new thing is we are God. We're just little gods.
Right.
Because we come from God. Since we come from God, therefore we are God. And it's like, no, you're human.
Made in his image, but a whole lot of brokenness has made me not at all a little God.
Right. Right?
Yeah.
That's the crazy of it,
Yeah.
because we are made in his image, but man, we're just a bunch of broken. And listen, guys, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not trying to slam anyone, but here's the reality. We're broke.
Yeah.
We are broken. We are.
And if we could have fixed it, we'd already fixed it
right
by now.
Yeah, because, and man never, listen, if man wrote the Bible, he would have condemned himself with no way out.
Right.
Except for a God, a Jesus, a Savior.
Yeah.
That has to deliver us if we believe in him. And man would never have given himself that. Man would have given him a much better way out. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what man does.
Well, we'd have come up with at least, a handful of ways that we could get out, right?
Right. Think about that, because that's what we do now. We have 10,000 different ways where everyone's acceptable and everybody gets to heaven because they're a good person, and God loves everyone just the way they are, and nobody's got to change. And so it's much like the Hindu religion, right? You get 1,000 different ways to die.
All right.
And 1,000 different ways to live.
Live however you want to live. And, hopefully it turns out good for you one day. But,
is there any reward for them? Well, here's the other thing, right? I was just thinking. You said that since they have no real value of life, if you will, right? Because it's step on everybody.
Life is definitely valued differently.
Okay. What gets them to like what? Where's the standard? Who gives them the standard? What do they know? It's befuddling my brain now that I'm really sitting here thinking about it, because it's like, who's giving them the hope, or who told them what hope is, or who told them, or they really don't know if they'll ever go to heaven.
Yeah, I think generations go by and people think through it less. They think, well, this is just because it's part of their culture, it's part of their religion, it's part of how they dress, it's part of what they do every day. I've been in taxis before, and we'll drive past a temple, and the man will sort of do it almost looks like a Catholic thing that they'll do. And I'll say, why did you do that? And he's kind of like, I don't know. That's what I'm supposed to do. And so I think that it becomes so ingrained in their culture and in their religious practice that they're almost just practicing without processing. They're almost practicing without really knowing what the hope is in the long run of it. But this is just what we do, which plays right into what we do. Because we could come in, show somebody real hope in Jesus, help somebody's family, help their kids, help their community. And we could say there's a God who loves you, not just a God who wants you to do this, and this every day, not knowing why. And for so many of them, that is very freeing in a way, that even though it's difficult for them to step away from some of those cultural things and stuff like that, it's very freeing, I think, for them to be able to say, wait a minute. I don't have to do all the things. I don't have to check all these boxes that I've been checking my whole life. Man, I've been sick of checking these boxes anyway. Right. I've been sick of doing this little mumbo jumbo when I go by the temple. I've been sick of doing this sacrifice every day. I've been, sick of all this.
That religion, not just that one, but exactly what you're saying, dude. That's what makes religion so daunting. It is because it is so task oriented, and it is relentless. Yeah. And if you're driven by fear, and you're driven by task, and you're driven by process, and you're driven by all this stuff, and you're like, if I don't do this, I'm doomed. Yeah. But you don't even know what you're doomed to. But yet you don't even know by doing this that you're going to heaven, because you don't even know if there is a heaven. Right. Dude, it is so... It just shows you how easily man's mind can be warped. Yeah. Into believing whatever. We were out to lunch today, and my wife was sharing how people were showing up for a protest. And a news guy comes up and says, so what are you here protesting? And they look at each other and they go, I don't know. What are we here?
Why are we here?
Why are we here?
We're just here because somebody said come.
Yeah, and they look at their partner and they're like, why are we here protesting? And the partner's like, I don't know what we're doing here, but we're here. And that's kind of like the Hindu religion, right? Like, we don't know why we're here, we don't know where we're going, and we don't know how to get there.
Right.
But we're going to keep wearing ourselves out moving.
Yeah. The definition of lostness right there, right?
Right. It is so crazy.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, that's the way America is right now. At least the younger generation. They don't know where they're going. They don't know how to get there. They don't know what they're doing. They don't even know the significance of why it matters. But, okay, we'll do it. And it's like, why are you doing it? I don't know. Are you going to get to heaven? I hope so. Well, if you hope so, you're not, right? Because if you ask me, are you going to heaven? I'm going to heaven, and the reason I'm going to heaven because Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior.
Yeah,
because there can only
assurance.
Be one, and there can only be one God. Even according to our definition, God means supreme being, which means there's nobody greater than God, and so you can't have hundreds of God or thousands of gods.
Right.
There can only be one. And if there's only one God, now we got to nail down which one that is. And if you look at every false religion, and I'm not bashing Hindus at all, or anybody, I'm just simply saying if you look at all false religions, they have multiple gods.
Yeah.
You can't have multiple gods, not by definition.
Multiple gods and or a whole lot of work you got to do to get to them, as in the Muslim religion. The one God, Allah, but lots of tasks, lots of things you have to do to somehow win earn the right.
Right.
And a lot.
Yeah, and then to get 72 virgins for the guy, but what do the women get? Or they don't go. See, I've never heard. I've never. Maybe if you guys are out there listening, you can send me a message, or I'll have to Google it. You never hear what the women
payoff?
get.
Yeah. What's the payoff for the ladies? I don't know.
Right. And where are you getting all these virgins?
I don't know.
And who came up with that? Right. And then what do the women get? Do they get anything, or do they get left behind? Like they're greatly disrespected here on earth in the Muslim religion. There's no value in women.
Right.
So maybe what do they not get? And guys, that's what I'm saying. If we look at all these different religions, we have a tendency to get lost in them. And then when you look at Jesus, he's like, no, I want everyone.
Yeah.
I love everyone. I died for everyone. And so if you make a decision for me, you're mine. The Father says you're adopted into the family.
Yeah.
And we become heirs and joint heirs with Jesus, which now I just get befuddled with all these other religions.
Yeah. Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes to the Father except through me. And all the other religions of the world say, nobody comes to all the other gods except for doing all of these things. And
then there's no guarantee of any.
But all these things are different for all the people, right? Different people have the different abilities to do different things. And how does that all equal something that equals the same thing in the long run? I was talking earlier about God on the mountain, that it's one of the things that we talk about a little bit in Nepal, especially because there's mountains all around you. So it's easier for people to picture this. But the religions of the world will tell you that there's a God or a whole bunch of gods sitting at the top of a mountain waiting on us to make our way to them. The Muslim religion tells you if you do enough good works, you do enough good things, or you make enough sacrifice, you'll get there. The Buddhist religion tells you, if you do enough of this or do enough of that, you'll eventually reach nirvana. The Hindu religion tells you do all these sacrifices, you make all these moves, and eventually you'll get there. And I always say, it's as if each religion thinks that we have a trail going up a mountain, And we're all going to get there eventually, because that's what the world tells us, is maybe one day we're all right, right? But the problem is we can't be all right, in that there's exclusivity among religions as well. But you look at it and you think...
that's a great point. The exclusivity means if you're not part of us or what we believe, you can't get there, even though we're all working like crazy. Or
Exactly. Yeah, the
but
Hindu
your work's going to
believes
be
you
like
need to
my
be
work.
Hindu, and the Buddhist you need to be Buddhist.
But the religion in itself is almost the same.
Yeah, but they have this picture that you got to do all this work and you got to do all these things, and maybe at the end you'll get to this God at the top of the mountain. And I always ask, what happens if God doesn't wait at the top of the mountain? And they're like, what do you mean? Because that's the picture they've always had, is God's up there somewhere, and we got to get up this trail to get to God. We got to live this life and do all these things to get to God. And what happens if God's not there? And I tell them that God came down. That God, as Jesus, stepped down off of his high place, came down to us to meet us before we ever got on the trail, before we ever reached the mountain, before we ever even realized all the perils and all the stuff that we'd have to do to get to the top of the mountain. God came down because he knew that we couldn't do it. We couldn't do it on our own, and he made a way so that we could find him, so that he could come after us, so that we could accept him, and then so that we could look across at all those other trails and all those other people that are striving to get to the top, to find nothingness at the end, and to begin to tell them, hey, there's a God who loves you. There's a God who cares about you enough that he came down. He's already here. He's already done this thing, and now you just need to jump on the right trail. You just need to jump over here with us. And so that's what we do.
And here's the thing, right? Out of all the gods that you ever read about, all the gods of the world, Jesus is the only one that came down to us.
Right.
All the rest are up there, big man with a big stick, waiting to beat up everyone who doesn't do right.
Sitting on a throne, waiting on you to mess up.
Right. And yet people will still choose to serve those false gods that have never done anything for them, and that is a constant threat and wants them to live in fear, over Jesus, who said, I love you so much, I'm going to come. And the Father says, I love you so much, I'm going to send my only son to die for you. And then people are like, no, I don't want nothing to do with that, but I'll work my hiney off to gain heaven that God said we could have for free.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, it's crazy to me, man. Crazy. Wow. All right. Anyway, I got another question for you. So, tell us a story of life change.
Yeah. We have a young man named Rajan. He grew up in one of our orphanages in Nepal. And I talk a lot about Nepal because it was kind of my first love there. But we work in all these countries, right?
But Nepal seems to be your passion.
Yeah, for sure. It's my number one. Yeah. But there's a young man named Rajan who grew up in our orphanage there in Nepal. And when he aged out of the orphanage, went on to school for a little while. And then we asked him, we said, like, what do you want to do? And I remember standing on the balcony of the orphanage one day and saying, hey, Rajan, what do you want to do? What do you want to be in life? And he said, I thought about joining the army because that's what my family lineage, like that's what everybody in my family before always did. He said, but if I don't do that, I think I'd like to start an orphanage. And this was at maybe 18 years old. He said this to me. And I thought, man, what? I mean, at 18, I guarantee you, I was not telling anybody I wanted to go start my own orphanage and live there with the kids and live happily ever after.
Yeah, right.
But I thought, oh man, well, I know what I'm praying for. Nothing wrong with the army, but come on, wouldn't it be incredible? And today he runs his own orphanage in the south part of the country. So he came to faith in Christ with us at our home. He came to learn how to serve and how to lead others and how to share the gospel with others. And then he just turned around and said, man, I want to serve too. I want to lead other kids to know Jesus. And so now today, he's running his own orphanage. I think he's got 4 or 5 kids now, and growing. So it's been incredible.
What do you guys do for discipleship?
Yeah. So we have various programs around the world, but typically we have missionaries, pastors, things like that who are running our nutrition centers, our orphanages, schools, medical, all these things. And so these guys are coming alongside. They're discipling up these kids. They're leading churches of people who then are discipling these kids as well. And so really that part of it is done so much just through our partners and through their service and their ongoing work. Of course, I'm not there full time. I'm back and forth here in the States and overseas to different countries. But it's primarily that falls to that pastor, to that leader, to that missionary.
Yeah. So what do you guys do? Let me ask you this. As far as the scriptures say, right? Because we have a few minutes left. So what does the Bible have to say about what you guys do with Manna?
Yeah, so the Bible tells us a lot of things. I once was reading a book, and they said basically if you went through the Bible and you cut out all the scriptures that have to do with serving the poor, that have to do with serving the widow, the neglected, the lost, abandoned, and broken, that you wouldn't have very much of the Bible left, honestly.
That's true.
And so when the Bible tells us, when Jesus tells us that we're meant to love God and we're meant to, with everything we have, with all of our heart, soul, mind, strength, body, everything we've got, and then we're meant to love other people as ourselves. What does he mean? What does it mean to love other people as yourself? Well, I make sure every day that I have my needs met. I make sure that I get a good breakfast, right? I make sure that I have good food. I make sure that I have a house over my head and my kid's head. I make sure that I have clothes to wear. I make sure that I have everything that I need, my basic needs met. And so I love myself enough to make sure that I have those things. Right? Because I don't want to be uncomfortable. And I believe the Bible tells us that, Jesus himself says that we're meant to love God and we're meant to love others as ourselves. And if we're going to love others as ourselves, I think we're meant to love them enough to make sure that they have their needs met, both physically and spiritually. The biggest thing that I love is my salvation. If I'm going to cherish anything, it's going to be my salvation. If I lose everything else, man, I'm glad that I can't lose my salvation. Right. And so when you look at that, you go, okay, if I love myself so much and care about my salvation so much, then I believe we're supposed to care about other people's salvation and love other people that much that we care about their salvation as much as we do our own. And so that's the biggest thing for me, is just a reminder of what Jesus said when he said, love other people as yourself. Right. And if we do that, and we can do that well, then we win.
Right.
If we could do that well, then we're doing what he asked us to do.
Yeah. And loving other people is being honest with them, not accepting a false reality, not lying to them to spare feelings. But yet not attacking the hurt feelings. There's this whole process, but if we're really going to love people, we have to love them in absolute truth. And that absolute truth is loving them enough to share the gospel.
Right.
Loving them enough to say, no, this is the truth.
Yeah. And we see that in some areas of society. You never have somebody that has an employee and the employee is just doing a terrible job at something, and the employer just says, "Okay, keep doing a terrible job. That's great." Or you're getting it wrong, but at least you're happy while you're getting
trying,
it wrong, right? No, we would say help them out, right?
Right.
Help them, lead them, teach them, all those things. If you if you have a child that is screaming and throwing fits. You wouldn't just, well, I mean, hopefully, you wouldn't just say, keep throwing your fits. That's great, son.
I don't know about today, brother. It might.
If you have a child that's a drug addict or something like that, you wouldn't just go out and give them more drugs, hopefully. You wouldn't want to enable them. And so that's what we're saying here is that if people have got it wrong, and we know they've got it wrong, and we know that they don't have assurance, and we know that they have so much hopelessness in their lives, and they're having to do all these things to try to keep up. And we have this good news where we can tell them, you can stop all that.
Right.
And you can just know that God loves you and that you can be saved out of your brokenness so that you can have hope and healing and something real to hold on to. Then not only would we be silly to not say anything, but we would be horrible people if we don't.
Right. So, you know who Penn and Teller?
Yeah.
Okay. So Penn, one day he does this show, and in the process of the show, he ends the show and he leaves and he said they go out the side door into the alleyway. And when he gets out there, he says there's this guy standing out there in the alleyway, waiting on him. And he's like, Mr. Penn. And he goes, listen, I want to give this to you. And he has it in his hand, and it's a gospel tract. And of course, knowing that Penn is an atheist.
Yeah.
So he said, we talked a few minutes, and I took his gift of the tract. And he goes, I wasn't ugly to him, and he was very gracious to me. And we talked, and then he goes, and then I went home, and he said, I got to thinking, here this guy doesn't know me from anyone, and yet makes it a point to go to the show, spend his hard-earned money, only for the opportunity to hand him a tract.
Piece of paper. Yeah.
And Penn said this, dude, and it just like resonates constantly in my soul. He said, most Christians, this is what Penn said, most Christians that he knows and knows who they are never talk about Jesus. They're just silent, right? They go to church, they go home, they go to church, they go home. They're just quiet. They live their religion to themselves. And Penn said this, if you really believe there's a heaven and you really believe there's a hell, how much do you have to hate someone to not tell them about that hell?
Right. Yeah.
Like that's what,
to not tell them about that heaven.
Right.
To not warn them.
How not to go to hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, how much do you have to hate someone to not share the good news of what we call the good news of Jesus Christ?
Right.
And dude, that just resonates with me, right? Here you have an atheist who says, if you truly believe this and you don't share it, you don't love people.
Right.
You hate them.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm just saying, because you said,
it's
like,
scary.
how horrible do you have to be, right?
Yeah, none of us want to be accused of hating people, but at the same time, in our actions, we often show that we don't love them the way that God intended for us to love them.
Exactly. All right, so I have one more question for you.
Okay.
And then we're going to wrap it up. How, if someone wants to support you, and support your ministry, your work, and support Manna, which I highly recommend, guys. Check out Manna. They do fantastic work. Craig is an awesome guy. His family's way better than he is, but they need to eat, and he's trying to raise money for them. So,
hey, you know.
No, I'm telling you, this is a fantastic family. And so if you're ever interested in supporting a missionary for Manna, think of Craig Alsup. But how can they contact you? How can they reach out and be a part of this ministry?
Yeah. So you can get on our website. It's just mannaworldwide.com. You can get on our staff page there, and it has my email. So you can jump on that, shoot me an email, let me know, any questions you have or whatever. If you're interested in having me come speak at an event for a business or for a church or whatever, let me know that too. I try to get as many places as I can every year. But if you want to support us financially, you can go to mannaworldwide.com. You go to our giving tab and you click on, I think it's support a director or something. And then you find my picture there. You can give directly to my family right through that. If you want to just support our work that we're doing, especially in Asia, we need it. You can go and just click to give, and then you can just type in the comments Asia, and it'll come to my projects in Asia, and then I can distribute that money according to what projects need the most help at the time, whether it's an orphanage or a school or a nutrition center or whatever it is.
Amen. So it's Manna.
Manna, MANNA, worldwide.com.
Right. Manna, MANNA, worldwide.com.
That's it.
And so make sure that you guys get on there and check it out, man. I think they're doing fantastic things all around the world. Plus, you do survey trips that people can go with you.
Yeah, we lead mission trips throughout the year, every year, to various countries throughout Asia primarily. My family and I lead. Sometimes I lead them by myself. But this year we're in Nepal, we're in Cambodia, we're in the Philippines, we're a little bit everywhere. And really just taking people so that they get the opportunity to meet some of the kids whose stories I tell, to connect with these partners that we have on the ground, to see what the needs are, to see how really easy it is for us as specifically as Americans. I know people all over the world may watch this, but realistically, we can make an impact with what we have. And so I want to take you there and show you. So you can definitely email me as well if you're interested in trips. So.
Yeah. Amen. All right. Well, brother, I am thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And dude, I'm so excited that you said yes.
Yeah, get to do all kinds of stuff this weekend here.
Yeah, yeah, but you're not here long enough for us to do a whole lot.
Right,
so,
right.
We'll get in as much as we can. Yeah. But thank you for being on According to John Unbridled. Yeah. And hey guys, listen, if you want to support Craig, it's Manna, MANNA, worldwide.com. Go check it out. Support Manna, support Craig, and man, you will be blessed for it. But I will tell you this, more than anything, that I hope you also got out of this, is the fact that with all these false gods, with all these many little g gods, people can get strayed and pulled away, deceived, and brought up in a world of crazy. And what I want to encourage you to do is share the gospel. Share the gospel with as many people as you can, and be patient while you're in the process, because there's a lot of people that have been brainwashed, for lack of a better term, and brought up in a false belief system that is just so ingrained in them. And so you pray for them, you share the gospel, and then you wait for God to do an amazing work. Hey guys, I hope this podcast has helped you. And if it has, please like, share, subscribe, and follow. And until next time, God bless.